Intimate partner violence is very common. In the United States, it affects 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men at some point in their lives. IPV includes physical violence, sexual violence, and stalking. In the United States, there are nearly 5.3 million incidents of IPV every year among women over the age of 18. In Canada, statistics show that 44% of women aged 15 or older have reported some kind of abuse in their intimate partner relationship. In Canada, every 6 days a woman is murdered by her intimate partner, according to a 2019 study. This week, we're going to look at a case that took place 4 years ago, but that is just now before the courts, and just recently a verdict was passed down, and the convicted is awaiting her sentencing hearing. This case brings about the question that many people argue about. Is domestic abuse a reasonable defense for homicide? Hello, my name is Lance, and welcome to episode 158 of Gone But Never Forgotten, The Murder of Jorge Torres by Sarah Boone.
(911) What is the location of your emergency?
4748 France Court, apartment 3.
4748, what's the street name?
France, Frantz.
And the apartment number?
3.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Fire risk. That's the location, Mercy.
That's 32.
No, please don't leave.
4748 France Lane, apartment 3.
France Court.
France Court.
Yes.
Okay, is this near Mackenzie Drive?
I don't know where that is.
Okay, fine, okay.
It's Hillwood Park Apartments.
Okay, 4748 France, correct?
Correct.
All right, correct. Now tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and
Mm-hmm.
I put him in his case and we were playing. And
Okay.
like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Right, okay, what's the apartment number?
3.
Apartment 3?
Yes, like he has like blood coming out of his mouth, and I don't know if like he had like an aneurysm or what happened.
Right, okay, all right, okay. Listen, we're getting help out there too. All right, okay. Okay,
Now?
Okay, yeah, man, listen, we're on our way out there. You're at 407-716-8684. Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Okay, so he was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
Okay, how old is the
42.
boyfriend, ma'am? 42-year-old male. All right. Okay, we're sending help out there. Sheriff's officer way out there?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry?
Yeah, okay. All right, listen to me. Okay, I just need to confirm this. All right, I understand. I just need to confirm this. Is he awake at all? Is he conscious at all?
No, he's purple.
Is he breathing?
No.
All right. I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
All right.
I tried giving him CPR.
Yeah, okay.
But nothing happened. He's purple.
Okay, listen to me. There's a defibrillator available. I need you to get it for me, okay?
What is it?
You have an AED available?
No.
All right. Are you right by him now?
I'm sorry?
Are you right by him now?
Yes.
Okay. Lay him flat on his... Okay, ma'am, listen. So listen, is he cold and stiff?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's not necessarily cold, but he's stiff. And he's
Right,
purple.
okay. All right, listen to me. I want you to lay him flat on his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Removing the pillows. Okay.
Yes, I did.
All right. Okay.
He's stiff and purple.
Right. Okay. Listen. Okay, man. That's fine. We're still going to do compressions on him. Okay. All right. Place the heel of your hand on his breastbone, right in the center of the chest, right between the nipples.
Yes.
Put your other hand on top of that hand.
Baby, I'm telling you. Just by looking at him, you can tell.
Okay. And
Please. Okay, he just gurgled.
okay. Listen to me. All right. I want you to place the heel of your hand. Okay, right between his chest, right between his breastbones.
Yes.
Put your other hand on top of that hand.
Yes,
We want to pump his chest to me hard and fast, going to this twice per second.
I'm doing it again.
Okay, no, just keep on pumping. That's all you need to do for me. Keep on pumping his chest for me. I don't need you to stop and talk or anything. I just want you to count out loud for me, okay?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is mixing.
Okay, ma'am, just keep on pumping his chest. That's all you need to do for me, okay?
Yes. Come on, please. Hurry up.
Okay, ma'am, they're driving here as fast as they can. Okay, don't stop to say hurry up. Just keep on pumping and counting.
I'm still doing it while I'm talking to you, okay?
Okay.
On February 25th of 2020, as you heard, a phone call would come in to 911 dispatch, and a woman named Sarah Boone was on the phone. She immediately told dispatch that her boyfriend was dead. When she was asked to relay to the person on the other line what exactly had happened, she explained that she and her boyfriend had been playing the night before and that she had zipped him up into a suitcase, and then she had gone upstairs and she said she had fallen asleep. She said that when she woke up that morning, he was still in the suitcase and he was dead. She stated that she didn't know what had happened. Sarah then went on to say that her boyfriend had blood coming out of his mouth, and she didn't know if he had had an aneurysm or what had happened to him. She said that she had taken him out of the suitcase and that she had tried to administer CPR, but there was no response. The 911 operator then instructed Sarah to continue trying CPR and pumping on the chest of her boyfriend, and in my personal opinion on the call, she was being combative with the operator way more than she seemed to be in shock or upset at all. She was simply saying matter-of-factly that her boyfriend was dead, and seemingly she did not want any part of trying to potentially save his life if that could have been possible. That phone call came in allegedly after Sarah had awakened on the morning of February 25th, 2020, and she had first called her ex-husband after she had found her boyfriend, Jorge Torres, dead inside of the suitcase. She called her ex-husband, who lived only a few minutes away from the home, and he had come to the house and seen George, and he told Sarah that she needed to call 911. When investigators arrived at the scene, Sarah would relay that the night before the two had shared one bottle of wine, and then they had decided to play hide-and-seek. She said that she thought that it would be funny to put George into the suitcase because of his small size. George was 5'2" and weighed only 103 pounds. Sarah said that the two of them had been laughing about the idea and laughing while he was being zipped into the suitcase. During the on-site investigation, Sarah willingly turned her phone over and forensic investigators searched the phone. The search found 2 videos from the night before that Sarah had taken. The videos showed Sarah laughing as George was inside of the suitcase and George was pleading for help. He said that he was suffocating, and Sarah told him that that was how she felt when he choked her, and that was what she felt like when he cheated on her. The video also showed Sarah laughing and telling George to shut up as he asked for help and called her name from inside of the suitcase. Deputies found George's body near the front door of the apartment, and they also noted a blue suitcase. They said that when they arrived, George had a small laceration on his lip, and he had bruising around one of his eyes. Sarah said that she had not had a physical altercation with George the night before, and she said that she had no recollection of making the videos that were on her phone. The two videos that were found showed the suitcase in two different positions. The first video showed the suitcase in a face-down position, with George struggling to try and push his way out. The second video showed the suitcase in a different position, showing that it would have had to have been moved. George's death was immediately ruled a homicide. The following day at the police department, when Sarah was again interviewed, she said that she didn't remember taking the videos, and she also said that she knew that the videos looked badly upon her. Jorge Torres and Sarah Boone were known to police and known to the legal system. This was not their first run-in with either. Prior to his death, George had been arrested multiple times for alleged instances of domestic violence against Sarah, and Sarah had also been arrested one time for an alleged instance of domestic abuse and alleged battery by strangulation against George. That happened in July of 2018. In that instance, both of them had been arrested. His charge was dismissed, but her charge was not. Overall, George had been arrested 4 times, but Sarah had been the one to bail him out each and every time. Now, this relationship certainly seems like the definition of toxic. We see this often, sadly, the never-ending cycle of abuse, this time seemingly going both ways, and then finally ending with one party or the other paying a serious or the ultimate price. The Orange County Medical Examiner determined that George's cause of death had indeed been asphyxiation, and it was indeed determined to have been a result of a homicide. The medical examiner also determined that George had been inside of the suitcase for at least 11 hours. The report also noted the black eye and other bruises and cuts that George had on his head. George's back and hands also had abrasions, bruises, and cuts that indicated blunt force impacts. The case certainly appeared to be cut and dried. This was a case of domestic abuse and domestic homicide. Sarah Boone was charged with second-degree murder, and she was held in the Orange County Jail without bail. The time in between Sarah's arrest and her court case was strange, is probably the best way to put it. In the 4 years that it would take for her finally to get to trial, she would eventually go through 9 different lawyers. During that space of time, Sarah would write letters to the trial judge, and she would say that she had not been represented fairly on multiple occasions. Her first 8 appointed attorneys would withdraw from the case. Irreconcilable differences were listed as the reason for many of the attorneys that withdrew. The reasons included Sarah's antagonism, her hostility, attacks on their professionalism, and various other types of abuse. Those reasons were all listed off in the minutes for each withdrawal application. In July of 2024, when the 8th attorney withdrew from the case, it was determined that Sarah was going to have to represent herself at trial. It was deemed at that point, after years of delays and motions, that she had forfeited her right to a court-appointed attorney. It was expected then that she would be using the battered woman defense at trial. The trial date had been set for October 7th of 2024, but the trial was again postponed, this time not because of Sarah, but due to the impending arrival of Hurricane Milton. The trial had been originally set for January 30th of 2023, but after all of the delays, as mentioned, the case had been finally set for October 7th, and Sarah would find representation one more time. This time in the person of James Owen Attorney at Law. James had met with Sarah 4 times between August 20th and August 27th and ultimately agreed to take on the case. James said, quote, "Sarah Boone needed a lawyer. I mean, I can't imagine our system. The case is an aberration. Sarah has been sitting in jail for a while. She's looking for her day in court, and we all want justice to be served. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I've been doing it for a long time. The state has the burden of proof. They have to prove their case. I know there is some strong evidence in this case." Unquote. He said that he had learned of Sarah's case through social media and court TV. It's pretty plain to me that he wanted the recognition that he knew would come with a case that was clearly in the public eye. A motion would be filed to dismiss the case entirely on the grounds that her Sixth Amendment rights, specifically her right to a speedy trial, had been violated. It was stated then that if ineffective and substandard state-provided attorneys should have made that request a long time before this particular filing. The motion to dismiss, though, was stricken from the record because it was filed by a non-party in the case. I think that the real question would have been where the blame would have been laid for the delays in the trial. In this case, do you blame the courts? Do you blame the attorneys? Do you blame a woman who allegedly abused 8 different attorneys along the way? Where does the blame lie? In October of 2024, the judge would deny a request from the defense to exclude certain evidence from the trial, namely recorded statements that Sarah had made while she was being interviewed at the Orange County Sheriff's Office in 2020. The defense argued that Sarah had felt tricked by a detective who had arrived at her home and responded to the 911 call. The defense also stated that the detective that had arrested Sarah had read her an incomplete Miranda rights warning. That was also denied, and with the denied application was attached an audio transcript of the Miranda warning that had been given to Sarah. The reading appeared to be sound. Leading up to the trial, Sarah's attorney would request in September of 2024 to rely on a battered spouse syndrome for the defense, stating that what had occurred was, quote, a result of the physical and psychological abuse the defendant sustained at the hands of the alleged victim, unquote. The request included the names and addresses of at least 6 witnesses who would speak to the abuse. One of them was a doctor. In response, the state had requested that Sarah not be able to use the battered spouse defense in the trial and in the opening statements of the trial, but that request was denied, and the judge ruled that Sarah would need to submit to an examination by an expert of the state's choosing. Finally, on October 18th of 2024, opening statements were presented and testimony began in the murder trial. A jury of 6 was chosen, with 8 alternatives sworn in as well. The state opened their case by claiming that Sarah had killed George, while the defense would say, for their part, that it was all in self-defense. The assistant state attorney William J. would say, quote, she did this with the malicious intent to punish him. Then she went up to sleep and left him to take his final breaths on this earth alone, unquote. He also pointed out that on her call to 911, she had no tears, and she had absolutely zero sorrow in her voice. The prosecution said that Sarah had no regard for George's life, but the defense said that she was the victim of battered spouse syndrome, and that she had locked George in the suitcase because of multiple occasions of prior abuse. During the trial, Sarah's defense team said that Sarah did not want or intend for George to die at all. They said that she loved the man, but hated the abuse, and that she was unable to leave or make him leave. They presented that Sarah had kicked George out of their home on multiple different occasions, 6 or 7 times, and that George just kept on coming back. Sarah had even tried changing the locks to the apartment, but George still came back. The defense presented Sarah as the victim of all of George's abuse and said that she didn't have family support or friends that surrounded her that could help her, and so she was left weak and vulnerable against George. At one point, the state played a video that had been recorded on Sarah's phone on the night that George died that showed George inside of the suitcase. I am going to play audio from that video for you now, but I do suggest listener discretion, as this is haunting and very sad to listen to, and certainly is not audio that is meant for everyone. You can fast forward about 2 minutes and skip that audio.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
For everything you've done to me.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah. 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 Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real or ransom. I want to get video for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real or ransom.
Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you jingle me.
Sarah. Please, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut up.
Sarah.
Shh.
Sarah.
When the video was playing, one of George's family members was overcome with emotion and caused a scene and left the courtroom. Seeing an opportunity, the defense moved immediately for a mistrial, stating that the jury could have been tainted by seeing the emotion of that family member. Now, for me, personally, this blew my mind a little bit. A key piece of evidence in this case would have certainly been the videos that were taken by Sarah on the night that George was inside of that suitcase. Everyone inside of that courtroom would have known that and would have certainly known that those videos would be shown. The fact that a family member became overcome emotionally at looking at their own loved one trapped inside of a suitcase, pleading for his life, mind you, should certainly move someone and certainly should move the jury. If it didn't, they would all be a bunch of monsters. This isn't something to move for a dismissal of a case over, though. That would set an insane precedent for evidence, would it not? That motion was, of course, denied by the courts. Evidence at the trial, of course, included those videos that Sarah had taken, as well as proof that George had suffered from blunt force trauma at some point as well. In his closing arguments, Assistant State Attorney Dave Cacciatore first displayed the suitcase again that George had died inside of. He said, quote, "This is the box where George was killed. It's a small box, 28 by 20 by 7.8 inches. George was zipped up inside of this box. George took his last panicked breaths in this box. The medical examiner explained to us that with each breath George took in there was less oxygen in this box. George was murdered in this box. Unquote. Dave went on to say that Sarah had taken the law into her own hands. He said that she had said in her own testimony that when George was inside of the box, he was laughing and he was giggling and they were joking. And then he started to complain that he couldn't breathe. That was when she said that she wanted him to stay in there so that he could feel uncomfortable and so that he could feel all of her grievances. That's not lawful. That is not the way that society operates. Dave also spoke on the fact that Sarah had used deadly force on George, and he said, quote, "No reasonably prudent and cautious person would believe that a man who could barely fit into this box, who was incapable of movement, who was begging for his life, who was slowly asphyxiating, suffocating with each breath, would have needed to use deadly force against him. The justifiable use of deadly force utterly fails, utterly crashed like a house of cards." Unquote. It's honestly hard to argue with any of that. It's one thing to argue that Sarah was abused. It seems pretty self-explanatory that this relationship between George and Sarah, as I said, was toxic. But the issue is that in the end, somehow George ended up inside of that suitcase, whether of his own volition or not, and then Sarah took advantage of the situation, and whether she meant to or not, she used deadly force and then allowed him to die inside of that suitcase. That deadly force that was used was not in self-defense, but rather, at best, it was retaliatory for the abuse that she had suffered at the hands of George and failed to carry charges through on. She gave her own vigilante justice to George and videotaped much of the proceedings. Sarcastically, Dave also said, quote, "Clearly Jorge Torres is dominating the defendant. Clearly, George is the one telling the defendant what to do. Clearly, George is the one calling the shots. Ladies and gentlemen, are we so sure that Jorge Torres wasn't the person suffering from battered spouse syndrome?" Unquote. The prosecution also mentioned that over the years, Sarah had changed her version of events multiple times leading up to the trial. Dave said that the truth doesn't change over time, and that facts don't change. And most importantly, he stated that the videos don't change. The defense attorney, James Owens, said that he argued that Sarah's use of deadly force actually was justified. He said, quote, "I think you will find from considering the evidence in this case that there is no doubt that Sarah Boone was a victim, that Sarah Boone has been traumatized, and the reason for this trauma is Jorge Torres." Unquote. He went on to say that Sarah was trapped psychologically. James also pointed out that George had initially chosen to get inside of the suitcase himself. Personally, I am not sure how that matters. The crime here wasn't getting inside of the suitcase. The crime was two choices. The choice to use deadly force and also the choice to allow for George to asphyxiate. Only one person had the ability to get George out of the suitcase, and that person was Sarah. She chose those other two things. Ultimately, the jury delivered a very quick verdict, and that verdict was guilty. Sarah was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was found guilty of convincing George to get inside of the suitcase. She was guilty of zipping that suitcase shut, and she was guilty of then refusing to let George out. Sarah Boone now faces a minimum of 22 years in prison, and she also faces a potential life sentence. The sentencing hearing is scheduled to take place on December 2nd of 2004. I will be sure to update on socials when the sentencing hearing comes down for Sarah, but where do you stand on this case? This one is tough on some levels, but unless you believe that vigilante justice is and extremes outside of the law are all right, I don't see how anyone can justify this murder. As someone who has been a victim of domestic assault in the past, I can certainly say that I understand the ins and outs of it, and I understand the cycle of abuse. I understand the feelings of not being able to leave or feeling like you can save something or someone. I have been there. This, however, is well beyond the scope of how you deal with that situation. I can leave the benefit of doubt that says that this did start out as a gag, and then alcohol and anger took over. However, even if you do believe those things, those videos are still haunting. You can tell that George is inside of that suitcase and he is not having a good time. He is struggling to breathe, and he is struggling to talk, and he is pleading for help, and Sarah ignores it. I think that it's even possible that the goal was never to kill George, and perhaps she did on some level believe that he would survive or get out on his own. But the flip side of that is that if he had gotten out of that suitcase while she slept and he was as abusive as she said that he was, she should have been afraid of that as well. There was intent to, at the very least, cause bodily harm here, and I think that the end result was that Sarah was okay with George dying because she knew that she would be free of him. I think that she had no idea, though, that for all intents and purposes, her life will likely end as well. In the weeks since the trial has ended, Sarah has already filed a motion for a new trial. She has claimed that the court erred by denying her the right to a court-appointed attorney. She argues that the court had blanket denied multiple defense motions, and she also says that the court erred by failing to call the mistrial when that family member of George's had their emotional outburst inside of the courtroom. The motion also says that the court should have stricken testimony that was given by a key witness, Dr. Tanya Werner, MD, after she had formed a new opinion pre-trial, and the prosecution had failed to let the defense know about it. The motion also says that the prosecution engaged in misconduct when they made a second closing argument instead of a rebuttal argument at the end of the trial. Sadly, as I said off the top of this episode, there are people going through these kinds of relationships all around us. They are our neighbors, they're even our family members, and they are our friends. And oftentimes people turn a blind eye, or even, as seems to have been the case here, police are notified, but then the victims bail out the accused and the cycle continues. Listen. Life can be hard enough as it is. Most of us know this. Nobody deserves to be a victim of abuse one time, let alone a victim of abuse in perpetuity. Sarah Boone was a victim, and Sarah Boone was also a culprit of abuse. This relationship was toxic from all sides, and everyone seemed to know about it. Neighbors knew it, family knew it, even the police knew it. However, when nobody is willing to press charges and stick to them, and nobody is willing to take that next step, this is what happens in many cases like this one. There are other ways out. Please, if this story strikes a chord for you and you or someone that you know is suffering through an abusive relationship, get help or get them help. It's far better for someone to hate you for reporting something than to deal with the crippling guilt that can come if something like this happens to someone you know or at the hands of someone that you know. Life is worth living, and everyone deserves to have a shot at happiness. Situations and relationships like this one between Sarah and George are not it. More often than not, they never will be. Get help and get out. In closing, I want to thank each and every one of you goners out there for listening to the show every week, and please always feel free to reach out and share your likes and dislikes and offer up ideas for future cases. Join the discussion on social media, or especially over on Patreon. I just dropped another Patreon exclusive episode that covers the tragic murder of budding musician and soon-to-be superstar Christina Grimmie. That case is one that actually brought me to tears as I did the research, and you don't want to miss it. Aside from that, I hope that as the holidays near, you and yours are well and winning. Stay safe and be better. I'll see you back here again next week for more true crime.